You're listening to the Brilliant Breakthroughs Podcast, episode number 46, with Maggie Muggan and Jake Nawrocki.
Hi, small business owners. Welcome to Brilliant Breakthroughs Podcast, where we focus on creating brilliant breakthroughs for the small business owner. FYI, this is also the name of the #1 Amazon best-selling book for small businesses and entrepreneurship. The good news is you can find this book in paperback as well as ebook form. Just so you know which one it is on Amazon, type in Brilliant Breakthroughs for the Small Business Owner, fresh perspectives on profitability, people, productivity, and finding peace in your business. And if you're listening to this after November 2018, we're talking about the Blue Book. And I'd like to say rock stars of small business. My name is Maggie Muggan. I am the anthology leader of this great book and the team that came together. And today we are honored to have Jake Nawrocki, a #1 Amazon bestselling author, to talk with us about your business's performance, in particular, people and relationships and how you can improve your business by building relationships via podcasts, which are really the 21st century's new form of a radio show. So welcome, Jake. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Awesome, Maggie. How are you? Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
I am hunky-dory fine. Let's rock this out for everyone, okay?
Let's do it.
Okay, so everyone, Jake's chapter in the book is the 6th chapter, and it's titled Your Voice on Air. And Jake, you covered an enormous amount of ground in your chapter, and there's a ton of stuff that people want to ask. And we've gone through things like, what are 3 tips? What do we need to know about podcasting? What makes podcasting work? We've talked about that in the last, 4 or 5 podcasts, right?
Right.
So everybody go back and find him and listen to his different episodes if you want to learn more about what Jake's saying about this really great way to build relationship with your marketplace. But today I have a really different question, and I think everyone's going to like this because this is going to be deep and fun all at once. You ready to play, Jake?
I'm ready to play. Here we go.
Okay, so drum roll. The question is, Jake, why do you do what you do?
Maggie, that's a great question. And it's an interesting one because, to be honest, as any business kind of has transformed throughout time, I really got into podcasting about 5 years ago, not because of wanting to teach other people how to do it, but to fill my own need. I was an individual that was looking at starting a business in personal development. And early on, I did all the traditional means. I started a website, I started blogging, I did a couple of videos, social media, the whole thing. And it wasn't until I listened to a different podcast from Pat Flynn, where Pat Flynn talks about online business and stuff. And he was really kind of preaching to the audience that day on why we, as a listener, should start my own show. And he was listing all the benefits, and he was listing the great things that come out of it. He was listening about they were talking about the exposure and the networking and the guests and the fans and all different types of things. And that's when I knew, you know what? This is going to be a great way for me to leverage one of my personal strengths, or as I said in a different podcast, one of your personal powers in understanding what you're strong at. And that was using my voice. And I thought, you know what? Why not me to start a show? Learned how to do it. 5 years later, great things have happened. I ran 2 live events here in the Milwaukee area, both of them international, people coming in from around the country and even Canada. International, I always like to say international, like people are coming in from Australia or Europe. Not yet. They're coming in from the country to the north, Canada, but still international nonetheless. So
Yes.
I'm going to use that to my advantage as much as I can. And out of that, a lot of great things happened. Obviously, I'm here with you on this podcast, talking about this and that. I've been on other shows, and great things have really come out of me deciding 5 years ago to start my own show. And so what now I've kind of transitioned to, and the thing that we're kind of talking about over the course of this podcast series and the book is really helping you, the small business owner, understand the power of podcasting and what it can do for you. Now, I will say that going back to one of your powers, if you enjoy speaking, you feel confident in what you have to offer, podcasting is a huge strength. But again, though, it's not designed for everybody. I do not want to force you in going and understanding that, well, you know, Jake, I stutter, I have a lot of ums and ahs, I sneeze a lot. I don't think it's the right thing for me, but if you say I'm going to do it, I should do it. I don't want you to jump into that pool yet, but I want you to hear the course of this conversation to see if maybe I can entice you to starting your own show. So the biggest thing that I want to start with is this. Creating a podcast is obviously a couple of fold. There's a lot of great benefits. And the main one is bringing people, new audience, into your world. Now, the reason why I say that is because in a chaotic world with so many different things going on, a couple of facts I want to throw at you. YouTube, for example, they upload 300 hours of video every single minute. There are 172 billion, or I should million blog posts that are released into the wild per day. And of course, social media, it never ends, right? From Facebook to Instagram to Snapchat, to all these other platforms that are going on. And it's very hard to grab a specific audience member and pull them into your world. But in the podcasting world, there's a lot of great ways that we can do that. Number one, by just starting a show, you are putting your voice, you're putting your raw, real, and relevant voice out into the abyss. Now, the power in the new kind of way of the new mediums are basically twofold. Number one is video. Video content is really dominating all spaces currently, but the second is audio. And the third is written or typed material, only because people are busier today. People have a lot going on. So the great thing about video or audio is that they can multitask while kind of absorbing that information. My personal belief in the podcasting world is that individuals are working out, they're cleaning their house, they're taking care of the kids, they're working on craft projects, or they're driving in their car, which is going to be your massive big audience, and they need something to listen to. And to put technology inside of the cars, that's what the automotive industry has done. The automotive industry has understood that to sell vehicles, they need to update their cars to make it pleasing for the consumer. And what does the consumer want nowadays? They want a display, they want touch display, and along with that, they want a car filled with apps. And the apps that they're putting in the cars, not just GPS or Pandora or music, but they're actually putting in podcasting apps already hardwired, downloaded into the vehicles before anybody gets into them. Now, as we know in the vehicle world, it started with a traditional radio tuner, transitioned to cassette, transitioned to CD, transitioned to Bluetooth, and now transitioned into full-out displays with touchscreens and all that stuff. And so if you see the rise of the auto industry of incorporating podcasting apps into the car, you understand, and I hope that I'm speaking clearly enough for you to make it realize that there is a huge amount of individuals that want to listen to podcasts instead of traditional means from years past. And so that should be the first aha. The second is every single smartphone comes pre-downloaded with a podcasting app. That's your second aha. And your third aha should be in the stats that I'm going to throw at you. I keep on throwing these out there because they're so lucrative and they're so powerful. Back in 2013, there was 1 billion listeners for podcasts in the iTunes store. iTunes made a big deal out of this. They were surprised that there were so many people listening to it back in 2013. Fast forward, anybody that has a traditional radio show or news channel or blog or YouTube channel usually has a podcast associated with that. And why is that? Because there is a massive amount of new audiences that are looking for new content. On top of that, there are around 800,000 podcasting shows dispersed that are bringing in the different listeners from the 2 to 4 billion listeners, we'll say, because like I said, in 2013, 1 billion. Over the course of time, it has only escalated. It's been like a hockey stick, slingshotting up. Huge amount of listeners are really jumping in the pool now. And out of that 800,000 shows, there's only around 150,000 active shows out there. And so what does that mean to you? look, there are a lot of different gold rushes. There's a lot of different blue and red oceans out there, but there's one true proven method that is making a huge impact today, and that is through podcasting. Podcasting allows you to get your voice into the abyss, to allow your voice to impact new people with your product, your service, even your small business. And so you may be thinking, Jake, there's a lot of technical side. It's not as easy as it sounds. Look, I was on a rafting trip recently where people were still panhandling and making $3,000 a month on the side of a river. And all they had was literally a pan. And a gold miner pan is basically a big saucer pan that you dig in some dirt, you get some water in there, you swirl it around, the gold falls to the bottom, the dirt debris rinses off top, and they keep on going around and around they go. And so podcasting is not that easy of just digging in a pan, but I want to make it as simple as possible. There are microphones that you can buy off of Amazon for $75, $80 called the ATR 2100. I explain all the details in my book, in the book, Brilliant Breakthroughs, in my chapter. That plugs directly into your computer. Doesn't matter if it's a Mac or a PC. From there, you have two software programs you can use to capture your voice. If you're a Mac individual, it would be GarageBand. If you're a PC person, it would be Audacity. Audacity is a free program. You can go online, find it, and download it. From there, there's a couple of extra clicks, but there's no other huge production needed. You don't have to soundproof your room. You don't have to hire an audio expert. You don't have to, outsource and back and forth and all this craziness. It has really streamlined the process for you to access a huge amount of individuals to come into your mission statement, the value you want to bring, your business, what have you. And so from there, there's a lot of upside, obviously. But the thing that I want to make it known here is your podcast, your voice on air is not going to make the type of impact that you think unless you do one thing. And this is my preach. This is my time to stand on my soapbox. Maggie has heard this millions of times, but to really make an impact, to really bring in a new audience, to capture that listener that has never heard about your story, never heard about your business, never heard about your product, and they click on your podcast and they go, oh, I'll give a chance here to James and see what James has to offer, and they listen to you. And if you're raw, you're real, you're relevant in the way you deliver, the way you present, the way that you're honest with that audience, they will become, quote unquote, a true fan, as Kevin Kelly would say. And once you have a true fan, great things can happen for your business. Now, what do I mean by raw, real, and relevant? In a world where we're usually editing and cropping and deleting and retyping and analyzing and looking for flow, and we're looking for everything to be glorious and glamorous, that's not the case so much in the podcasting world. The podcast world, along with vlogging, like on the YouTube world, is raw. There's nothing there's things scripted, of course. There is a game plan, there's bullet points, and you may even be an individual that needs things typed out. But when you start to speak and once you start to get into the motions, you really start to deliver a wavering kind of ambiance about who you are, your values, your truths, your beliefs, your mission, on what you want to express to that audience. And when that individual hears that and they understand what you're trying to say, they will be with you for a long time. Now, recently, Maggie and I were at the Brilliant Breakthroughs live event. And I met an individual there that started a podcast, and his name was Michael. And I asked Michael an easy question. I said, Michael, how long do you think your podcast is going to be? And he said, well, I think my podcast is only going to be around like 5 to 7 minutes because I don't want to bore my audience. And I said, well, is your podcast live? He said, no, my podcast isn't live. And I said, well, how do you know you're going to bore your audience? And he said, well, I don't know. I think anything longer than 7 minutes would bore somebody. And I said, well, unfortunately, in the podcasting world, there's a lot of good stats that you can see who's downloading your content and where's it coming from. But at the other side, there's not a real sounding board. As for example, Maggie and I are creating this podcast. Right now, a couple of people are going to be listening to it. But I know in time, more and more people are going to stumble upon it, and they're going to be listening to it. And I don't know what their likes or dislikes are. I don't know if they like my voice or hate my voice. And even for you right now, you may be loving Maggie and you love everything Maggie has to say, but you hate the guest that he brought or that she brought on, Jake, which is me, and you don't like the way that I'm delivering. Look, everybody has their flavor. And once you understand that, you just got to own it and go what you feel is right for you, your business, your product, your service. And that's where the raw and the real comes into play in my philosophy. And the relevant is nothing more than understanding, what are you talking about? Is it relevant to your business? Is it relevant to you just making stories? Is it relevant to whatever the case may be for you? And once you start to own those 3 R's, great things can happen for your show. Great things can happen for your own personal confidence of you getting on a microphone and owning it. Because as you know, as a small business owner, you walk into a coffee shop, you sit down, you're doing some work, a nice gentleman or a lady will sit next to you. For some other reason, they decide to strike up a conversation. They ask, what do you do, or what's your business? You don't have time to edit your pitch. You don't have time to edit what you're going to say or the facts or the figures or the stats. It comes out naturally. And once you're able to sit there in a natural environment and explain to them what you do, and you pitch them your values and your mission and what your product or service does, they will either love it or they will hate it. And that's all you can do, right? And the same goes with the podcasting space. You bring your best foot forward, you try your best, you deliver your best, and you just let the audience decide on their own. You're not forcing anybody to go with you. You're not forcing anybody to marry you. You're just forcing them to understand, do they like you? Do they not like you? Do they understand your product, your service, or values, or whatnot? And from there, they join your email list. From there, they contact you. From there, they buy your product. From there, they leave a review, whatever the case is, and you continue on. Now, in the whole demographic here of understanding what a podcast can do for your business, I want to make it clear that in a world of so much chatter and so much going on, iTunes, which is the biggest podcasting host out there, iTunes does a great job of providing you free advertising on their homepage of iTunes Podcast. Let me repeat that. iTunes Podcasting will give you free advertising once your podcast is up and running. There is a section on the homepage of iTunes Podcast called New and Noteworthy. Any new show, any show that is creating content on a regular basis will be thrown into that mix. And your show will get exposure for free from iTunes for 8 weeks. After the 8 weeks, you are kicked to the curb and you're out into the abyss by yourself. And then it's up to you to organically find new audience, or for you to go out there and hustle and get new audiences for you. But there's no other platform, no other blog site, no other YouTube channel or any other video streaming platform where they will advertise your show for you. And that's really powerful because, again, the world is chaotic. There's a lot going on. How nice would it be for somebody for free to give you the ability to advertise? Now, I don't know if iTunes is going to do this forever. Maybe they are still continuing to beat up business, or drum up business, I should say, for creating new podcasts. But it's something that they're doing right now. Will last forever? Who knows? But right now, in June of 2018 here, that's what they're doing. And I would say take full heart of that. The second thing off of that is building those deep relationships with people that you could potentially bring onto your show. And that's something I talked about in the previous episode here of the Brilliant Breakthroughs podcast. So I don't want to keep on beating a dead horse, but there's a lot of great benefits that I would think that if you guys are really getting the itch and you're really enjoying what Jake has to say right now, please reference my other episodes in podcasting and to see if it's a good fit for you. So Maggie, I don't want to keep on going on here because as you can tell, I can just go down this rabbit hole.
I have a question for you.
Yes, yes, love questions.
Okay, because like you really took us there, okay? But now I want to pull back because there's a lot of people right now saying, man, he's so smooth.
Yeah, very, 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 very true. Well, first of all, thank you for that comment.
Hold
sorry.
on, let me finish.
Very excited here. Very excited.
Yeah, I know. That's why I want to pull back because you've been doing this for 5 years.
Yes.
You're rock solid. But when we start off, we're not rock solid like this. And I'm a blogger and I have about 1,000 blog posts out there. And somebody said, "Do you still have your original posts out there?" And I said, "Yes, I do." And I said, "They're pretty ugly." Okay. But they're out there. And at one point I came really close to taking down like the first 30 and just removing them. And I thought, no, that's not right. And to stay in the integrity of, you got to start somewhere. And this is how it looks. Yes, today, it looks really solid. It's refined. I got my game going. I got my rhythm. I know it, and I know how to communicate to my audience. But at the very beginning, I was a little all over the place, and it was rough. It was really rough. And I think that when we have small business owners that are looking at different ways to uh, be with their audience, that sometimes they say, "Oh, I can't do that because they're not refined yet. They haven't done it for 5, 6, 7, 10 years." Okay. And there's a disconnect with that. So you started this a while ago,
Yes. Yes. It
and it was rough, wasn't it?
Yeah, totally. It's like listening to your own voice message, or your own answer machine. You just sound hideous. You hate it. You're like, oh my God, I sound like that. Ugh, like you can't even stand it. But you need to understand that the risk is worth the reward. And one example, Maggie, as you were talking, when you finally meet a significant other, or you find a boyfriend or girlfriend, you bring them over to your mother's house and your mother brings out the album. She brings out the album to start from the beginning. She doesn't rip out all the pages from when you're a little kid and you were messy and you pooped yourself and you broke toys and you smashed a window and all that stuff. And then she just fast forwards to like when you're a professional and, oh, this is the time he got his first check and look at that custom suit. No, like no, we show all the chaos in the beginning, right? Because it's part of our journey. And the same applies to our business. We don't need to hide the past. Embrace the past. That's how we got to where we are right now, like right in this minute. And I embrace the old silly introductions and my homemade music and whatever, because that's how I started. And you're right, Maggie, we can all look back at blog posts, voice recordings, videos, whatever the case is, but that's the history of us getting to this moment right here. And when you understand that, it you will get there. It will take time and energy, but if you're committed and if you're willing to keep on beating that drum of your business, it's part of your story. And when you understand that, great things can come out of that.
Right. It's an evolution. And you don't get to be a superhero without having the struggle at the beginning of the story, right?
Right, right.
And
Especially when we look at other people's blogs or websites or videos, and they're just like they're at the top of the food chain in that industry or that niche, and we're like, wow. Maggie and I love Brendan Bouchard, and he is dialed in. He has everything squared away. We're like, wow. How is that? But you don't really see how it was before because we're just catching him now. But in the beginning, he was just like you and I,
oh
sitting
no, I
here.
caught him in the beginning.
Oh, see.
You're right. He's just like you and I. And that's the fascinating thing. And that's why I love your message, Jake, of be raw, be real, be relevant. And even Brendan Richard, as we're talking, he gets a little dorky on stage and it makes him endearing and he embraces that. And he says, okay, he doesn't say, I'm going to get my dork on, but he says something like
Yeah.
that. And he goofs off for a little bit. And I love it. And everybody else does too, because he's showing that he's real. He may have this body of wisdom that he has down pat and he can do it morning, noon, and night, no matter where he is. But he's also human and he's just like us. And
Right.
that's why I wanted to pull back a little bit and say, 5 years, you're refined and you're not at all finished. Your evolution continues as well. And that's one of the cool things of being with somebody and being able to go back to the beginning is to hear is like, oh wow, check that out. I can do that.
Yeah.
Versus the now.
Right. Right. Right.
And I tell all my clients who I'm teaching how to blog, I tell them to go back and read my first 10. And they come back and go, wow, I can do this.
Oh, you weren't supposed to say that.
No, it's true.
Yeah.
It's good
No, I understand.
content, but it's rough compared to what I have
Right.
now.
Right.
1,000 times you sort of get good at something.
Yeah.
So it's part of the evolution.
Right.
One last thing, what do you want to say to us?
One last thing. The classic, it's not easy, or the easy things to do are also easy not to do. It's easy to overlook this message. That quote was from Jim Rome. I don't want to get any copyright, legal stuff thrown at this podcast, but don't overlook this as it's complex. I'm not into it. It's out. Always be aware as a small business owner, you always need to zig and zag and to find your path and to always be open to new opportunities, new ideas. There could be a reason why right at this moment, right here, right now, you're driving, working out, you're at home, whatever the case is, wherever you are, that you need to hear this message about podcasting or hear the message about Maggie understanding that you got to start somewhere, whatever it is, and to use that as your fuel and your energy to keep on moving forward. This is a challenging journey. It's an uphill battle, but the only way to get to the top is truly putting one foot in front of the next.
Yeah, and I will add just another statement to that, which is no matter how you choose, whatever modality you choose, it is an uphill battle until you become competent at it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. Just pick what fits best for your audience and for your own skill set.
Right.
Cool. Listeners, this is how you can learn more and engage with #1 bestselling author Jake Nawrocki. Start by reading his chapter number 6 in the book, Brilliant Breakthroughs for the Small Business Owner, and gift your business's performance. Hear me out, your business's performance by accepting the invitation that Jake has at the end of his chapter on his author's page. Plus, also know that there's other social media handles there for you to connect with Jake as well. So here's something that's really cool that I want you to be thinking about is if you go to your app store and you download Brilliant Biz Book, that's Brilliant Biz Book, all one word. Right now you can see everything about the book and how to get a hold of Jake Nawrocki. So if you go there and you click on Ask an Expert, you will see Jake's name. Click on that, type in your question, and he will respond back to you. You have a question about podcasting or relationship building, anything he's talking about, he is game on for you. Okay? Jake, you game for that?
Totally. Right on. I'd love to hear from you guys.
Okay. Thanks, Jake, for your time and your wisdom sharing today. You rock.
Thanks, Maggie.
And listeners, we appreciate you listening to the Brilliant Breakthroughs podcast, where you learn about how to create more brilliant breakthroughs for your small business. Until next week, shine brightly.